kind introduction. I've gotten to know David and Elise through, I guess, a number of years now, and I've gotten to collaborate with both of them on some fun projects, actually very related to this topic. So today we are going to talk about rituals of great teams. Let me make sure that this is up and sharing. Can everyone see my screen? Oh, awesome. There is a link here to this doc in case you want to follow along. And I think someone's going to stick it in the chat as well. But today I am going to talk about rituals of great teams, and we're going to talk about 4 of them in particular. So let me first off start by introducing this topic. So a few years back, I had this sort of formative conversation with a friend of mine named Bing Gordon. Bing, for people that don't know him, he's one of the founders of Electronic Arts and is now a famous investor, one of the investors in Amazon, one of the lead investors in Zynga, sits on a number of boards. And he and I sat on a board together. And at one point, he made this comment that really stuck with me. He said, great companies have a small list of golden rituals, and there are 3 criteria. Number 1, they're named. Number 2, every employee knows them by their first Friday. And number 3, they're templated. Now, Bing tends to rattle off his list quickly. So he talked about how Amazon has 6-pagers and Google has OKRs and Salesforce does something called V2 Mom. And we ended up talking for a while about this concept of golden rituals. This idea really stuck with me. And I started to talk about it more often with more people and ended up talking about it on a podcast I did with Reid Hoffman on Masters of Scale, which ended up attracting a bunch of inbound interest. So people started sending me their rituals. Say, we do this thing in our company. It's kind of interesting. So through the pandemic, I decided to turn this into my project. The project is called Rituals of Great Teams. And the basic idea is that I've now interviewed about 1,000 companies, and we are selecting out the top 100 rituals and adding them to a new book called Rituals of Great Teams, which we'll publish next year. The primary way I did this was by holding virtual dinners through the pandemic. So we would get 6, 7 people together and have them share their rituals with each other. And I learned a few different things about rituals in that process. The first was that almost everybody had fun rituals to share. That was really interesting to see. The more interesting one was people were very interested in hearing other people's rituals. So they would attend these dinners and have a lot of fun doing it. But certainly the most impactful observation came from one of the attendees was a guy named Dharmesh Shah. He's the founder of HubSpot. And he made this statement: rituals are not just your team's operating system, they're a 2-way mirror of company culture. And his framing for it was that as a company, we tend to build 2 products. We build one for our customers and we build one for our employees. The one we build for our employees, we call that culture. And if you ask someone to describe the culture of their company, they will probably describe it by telling you about one of their rituals. This idea is very sticky for me and became the heart of this discussion and writing this book, Rituals of Great Teams. So today, what I'd like to do is pick out just 4 of the rituals. There's hundreds of them in the book. I've picked out 4 of them to highlight today. And we'll talk about one from Coda, one from Arianna Huffington, one from Square, and one from Intercom. I'm going to jump right in, and then we'll come back and talk about some observations across the rituals. Okay, so let's talk about 4 interesting rituals for innovation. So the first one I wanted to start with is actually the Coda ritual. So if you were to ask a set of Coda employees on their first Friday what our golden ritual is at Coda, they would almost certainly tell you about this thing we do called 2-way write-ups. Our head of product, Lane Shackleton, ended up writing a very nice doc about it, along with someone named Colin Breyer. If people aren't familiar with Colin, Colin wrote a book called Working Backwards. He was Jeff Bezos' chief of staff at Amazon. And Colin and Lane put together this really fun comic that I think really captures a different approach to running meetings. So the way they thought about it is that the arc of meetings and decision-making have gone through 3 decades of transformation correlated with new technology change. So in 1987, the the product PowerPoint was released. And for a few decades, we all sat in meetings that felt like this. Somebody presents, people with all different impressions, and this was just the state of the art for how we thought about meetings. In 2004, two things happened the same year. So Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder, wrote a now famous memo called "No More PowerPoint." And he outlawed PowerPoint at Amazon and asked everybody to switch to what they call six-page write-ups. And then the same year, about 9 months later, the very first version of Google Docs came out. At the time it was called Writely. Interestingly, that memo from Jeff Bezos was written by Colin Breyer, the author of the Working Backwards book. And so I got to hear a little bit about what that process was like. But it's interesting that these two things happened at the same time. We moved to collaborative documents and shifted away from PowerPoint at the same time. In a lot of ways, this was a very positive step. Documents, as many people would observe, allow for a more thorough thought process. You don't skip as many steps as you do in meetings, as you do in presentations. And Google Docs allowed it to be collaborative, so we could all work on it together. Google Docs also has a feature called commenting. And in one of these dinners, someone reflected that it feels like the most important decisions in our company are made in the right 100 pixels of a Google Doc. That can't possibly be the best way to do it. So what's wrong with that way of doing it? Well, two different things you might observe when this happens. So you send out your Google Doc and say, I'm ready for review. What do most of us do? We watch really frantically at the list of avatars at the top. Did the person I really want feedback from read this thing? Did they get, how far down did they get? And you're trying to figure out, are people even processing it? They didn't leave a comment. Does that mean that they didn't care? And then you get to the comments and you realize the comments are sort of jumbled. Some of them are grammatical changes and some of them are totally different perspectives on the thing you're trying to do. And then finally, you get into the meeting and you're ready to discuss and you realize that nobody actually said what the decision is. Nobody said what's really on their mind. And they're all sitting in the back with expecting you to interpret them through their comments. So at Coda, we do something called two-way write-ups. The structure of doing it is three parts, sorry. There's in every document in Coda, there'll be a done reading button that sort of signals, I've read this thing. The bottom of this is what we call a dory. So here's represented as questions. Dory's named for the fish who asks all the questions. And it's a pretty simple idea. You, instead of calling out meetings in any order, we ask people to add them to this table and you vote them up and down. And we go through them in that order. And then finally, we have pulse. Pulse is where we ask everybody to write their viewpoint on a particular decision. So you have to commit on your view. And the way we do it is we hide everybody else's viewpoint until you're done writing. So in practice, this looks something like this. I'll show you a quick example. Actually, I was going to show the other one. It'll look something like this one, where this is a very typical write-up from Coda with lots of different things that we're discussing. And oftentimes we'll have these little buttons throughout, say, I'm done reading up to this point. And then people will come in, I'll go to the bottom first, add their questions, vote them up and down. And then finally, they'll add their pulse. And the way we do it, everybody else's responses are hidden until you're done editing. I wanted to start with this example partially because it's our own and so I know it very well, but also to reflect a bit on the power of a ritual like this. You know, we do it for a number of different reasons, but the reason it's become a golden ritual and why our employees would talk about on their first Friday isn't because they're all into running great meetings. And I know Elise and David are the kings of running great meetings, so they could probably tell you lots about that. But most of our employees don't really care much. But what they do care about is culture. And so if you ask them on their first Friday to describe what their first week was like, you'll hear them talk about how they're really excited they joined this company, Coda, and the culture is so open that anybody can ask a question in a meeting and have it voted up or down. And they get asked their opinion in a meeting where they might not have been heard, and it's separated from the groupthink of how everybody might just converge on whatever the first person says. And in that way, by describing this ritual, they end up describing their culture. As you think about this ritual in particular, I might encourage you to think about your own team and your rituals for making decisions. Is there a way that's unique to how you do it? All right, I'm going to switch to number 2. Number two is in a very different context. So this comes from a really fun conversation with Ariana Huffington. Ariana is obviously famous for starting the Huffington Post, but she is now the founder of a new company called Thrive Global. But she tells a heartbreaking initial story, but a wonderful outcome story of what happened when she had a medical accident and ended up having to really confront a set of realities about um, uh, medicine. And she learned a lot about her brain chemistry and about meditation and so on. And she came up with a new ritual called reset. So I'm going to just show you quickly what a reset is. And I realized I did not check that sound works here, but we're going to try. So I'm just going to play you her reset. I'm going to go ahead and turn the sound down so you can hear me talk about it. So this is a video she calls a reset. And so a reset is a 60-second video that is a breathing exercise. You can see the inhale, exhale at the bottom, but it's personalized. So in this case, those are pictures of her kids. That's her hometown in Greece. These are some of her favorite quotes. And it's all sort of pulled together into a single exercise. It's meant to be used certainly personally. So she uses it at the start of the day, the end of the day, a time when she's feeling up or when she's feeling down. But the way she brought it into her team is to turn it into a ritual for meetings. The way it works, the way they do it is they spin a wheel and they pick a random person and they watch their reset. I'm going to go ahead and pick mine. She had me make one for myself. Here's mine. And they play each person's reset. And there's a couple different reasons why they do it. They do it first off as a meditation exercise. Everybody calms down, gets recentered, ready to confront whatever the challenge of the day might be. But it's also a way for everybody to get to know each other. These happen to be my kids and my wife and some of the quotes I care about and some of the moments in my life that are special to me. And it's a great way to connect with different people. So I really love this reset, this ritual. I think it is indicative of lots of things, but the question that I might put to all of you is, as you think about the rituals you have within your own teams, are they all about the work or are they all about each other? And you can think about different ways to bring those types of rituals into your experience as well. All right, on to number 3. So for number 3, I wanted to talk about a ritual from Square. And this ritual came from a woman named Jenny Emick. And she had this observation that designers weren't having regular conversations about their career development with their managers outside of review cycles. And this was, pretty tough time. Every 6 months you go have a review cycle. It's not a great time to confront where you actually headed in your career. She also noticed that while people had standing one-on-ones with their manager, they lacked structure to prioritize career development conversation on a regular basis. So she decided to attack this problem by shifting an existing ritual. So I'll show you quickly what she did. Let's get over here. So one of the things she observed was that just about everybody had a standing one-on-one with their boss, and they were all done the same way. Long Google Doc, date, notes, date, notes, date, notes, date, notes. She called them forever scroll docs. And all she did was she took it, in this particular case, she happened to do it in Coda, and she just separated that doc into parts. This is what it looks like. Each of these pages in Coda, for those that are less familiar, feel a little bit like tabs in a spreadsheet turned sideways. And she just split that document, that 60-page document, into parts. So the first one is a partnership agreement where the employee and their manager write down what their expectations are of each other, what their preferred method of communication is, what their goals might be, some of their shared expectations that they commit to each other. Then they create separate spaces for things that would naturally exist elsewhere, a place to track goals that might exist in some other goal tracking system, a distinct place to go think about their career path. Let's go write down how we're thinking about your career path. This is the main goal she was trying to solve. At Square, they do something called kudos, where they keep track of positive things that happen throughout the year so that you don't have recency bias when you get to that promotion time. And then she encouraged everybody to have a meeting notes section with a template where you set a cadence. You say every month we're going to think about new goals, and every quarter we're going to go and check in on development feedback. So there's a few reasons why I really like this example. It spread like wildfire through Square, partially because it was so simple. I mean, people spend millions of dollars on performance management software that nobody wants to use. And by making a small tweak to an existing ritual, she had a massive impact. The other reason I really love this ritual is that it's almost a meta ritual, because part of what is being encouraged here is not only that everybody should do their one-on-ones differently, but that every pair, every partnership agreement represents a new ritual, that every group should form their own way of thinking about their interactions. So that's ritual number 3. And I think that my main takeaway here is every partnership is unique. What are the right rituals for each? So you don't necessarily need to stamp these out across your whole company. Every little interaction can be a little bit different. Okay, I have one last one, which is a personal ritual. And this comes from Des Traynor. Des is the founder of Intercom, and happens to be a really prolific writer, and he's very witty on Twitter. And he had this really popular tweet. He said, thinking about productivity and its tools, your email is what others think you should work on. Your to-do list is what you think you should work on. Your calendar is usually what you actually work on, how much they overlap in your world. And he had these little Venn diagrams to describe that dynamic. So first off, that's a really fun observation. Every busy person on the call probably is immediately nodding along. That's exactly what my life is, wrestling against this Venn diagram. But in his case, he took it and he turned it into a system. So I'll give you a very brief tour of his system. This is all linked from the doc there as well, if you want to take a look. So his system starts with 3 steps of pre-work. First, you set up your to-do list, and he has a really simple to-do list in here. Then you sync in your email. So again, use Coda for doing this. We have a feature called Packs where you can integrate with different systems. In this case, he integrates with Gmail. Every time he stars a message in Gmail, it will show up in this list, 1 row per thread. Then he syncs in his calendar, same basic idea. Every event on his calendar shows up 1 row per event. And that's it. Those are the 3 sets of pre-work. Now the 3 parts of your Venn diagram are all in one place. And then he runs his system. So his system kind of progressively works through that diagram. So he starts with his inbox. His recommendation is get everything out of your inbox. Take everything that you starred and either add it to your to-do list or link it to something already on your to-do list. Now you don't need to think about your email anymore. Then you rearrange your calendar to match. So now you have a to-do list that's complete, and you just need to make sure it appears on your calendar. So you can go through here and say when you're supposed to work on it, and it'll all show up on your calendar. Then you run your week, and as you run your week, your to-do list now has 2 new columns. When am I supposed to work on this, and where did it come from? And at the end of your week, you get reflection. And this reflection is a chart that says what portion of my time was spent on things that had to-dos at the beginning of the week versus didn't, and you get a score. So a few things I love about this example. This score here has become my personal scorecard of the week. I've learned that any week where I cross 50% is a good week for me. Completely humbling observation to know I only control half my time. But the really interesting thing I love about this ritual, and I know for some of you this will feel like exactly how you want to run, and for others this will seem insanely complicated. But what I love about it is just think about this tweet. How often do we read a tweet like this? And what do we usually do? We might like it, we might retweet it, stick it in the back of our head, and we do nothing about it. What he did was he took that tweet and he implemented it. I like to say that this document is a tweet that's been compiled into software. And I would encourage that whatever that insight is, whatever the ritual you're trying to get done is, make sure that you turn it into a workable system for yourself. His main point out of this is when we think about our team's performance, we often spend a lot of time thinking about the team, but actually your team's productivity is upper bounded by yours. What's your ceiling? It's probably going to become your team ceiling. So that's 4 golden rituals that are just a little snippet of some of the different things I've learned through this process. Think about how you make decisions. Two-way write-ups might be an interesting way to think about it. The power reset might inspire different ways to think about, are we about just the work or about each other? The one-on-ones is about shaping unique rituals around each partnership, and personal cadence is all about raising your personal ceiling. That's a quick recap of golden rituals. Thank you, everyone.